So I want to quickly speak with you about nonlinear living. All right, it's time to nonlinear-tize your life agenda. A lot of times people are looking for things to go a certain way and kind of this straight line, progression or continuum of what they're doing. And that's really not how life works. It actually never has really worked in a linear format, no matter the success templates or so that we've been given to leverage is how we should build our lives, a certain way. It just isn't a linear process. And certainly for those of you who are entrepreneurs, definitely know that the entrepreneurial experience is certainly not linear, but it just speaks to life, just speaks to life in general. And I thought it was really important, to really talk about this is because um, as things are progressing with the evolution of change, people are going to have to be more flexible, more fluid, and not so um, just hard pressed in a sense, in this rigid format of thinking that things have to be a certain way. We have our alphabet where it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Well, in this newer expansion, E might come after A, and it doesn't have to make sense. But for the whole of the experience, it will. So you think about when you're putting together like a puzzle, right? And there's just a lot of pieces, and you try to start piecing ones together that will fit accordingly to be able to demonstrate the picture on the box or whatever, whatnot, right? Life is similar, but in some cases, we don't always get the picture to know what we're actually setting up. But we have these pieces that we are just putting into place. And so even if you do have some type of vision or some type of goal, something that you are trying to achieve, and yeah, maybe you do have the visual of it and you know what you want it to look like or what it's going to look like. But at the same time, you have to realize that as you're getting the pieces to put them together, doesn't mean you're going to get all the pieces to put a certain section together at one time. You may have to be working on different sections and then it comes together as a whole. So something I want you to think about too, like I have a media background, and so I'm really familiar with the non-linear editing, process. And so understanding that even when making films or different productions, that sometimes certain aspects of the production are shot at different times, and then the frames are brought together. It's a really non-linear process. So it's not that, okay, this frame was shot then and it's just a straight line of how it was. No, the the overall experience could have been done on so many different levels, but when cohesively it comes together, then it streamlines into a frame that then is sort of chronological and linear. But the process in which to get to that creation that's done in the post-production aspect, no, that the prior part was not a linear process. But again, then it's made linear in a sense when you do get into the post-production aspect. So you have to be able to see your life like that. Even some of you, when you're moving and the way living situations are now, is that you may be living in several different places. You may not have just this, here's where I am and this is what I do. You could be traveling, or there may be times where you live in a certain place during a certain time of the year. You could have a home base or a few home bases, so to speak. And yeah, but it doesn't have to be just this linear process of of living. It's just really not how life is working in general. And again, it actually really has never really worked. It's just that the conditioning has sort of set up this bias in a sense where it has worked to some extent. But I shouldn't say that it has not worked, but it's always been available for us to actually maximize our higher living potential by not having that linear framework. But the linear framework did serve and still does to a certain extent in some cases, but the new emergence of what's taking place, it will not. You're really going to have to allow the different frames of your life to just be productions that are just kind of happening. And then, like you said, at some point, then there is a cohesiveness where you can streamline it. You can make more sense of it. So going back to the puzzle, is that once the puzzle comes together, people only see the puzzle together, but that process of putting it together, certainly again, is not linear. And so this way of thinking helps individuals not to be stressed and not to be, thinking so much in a certain way. It causes you to be on the path of least resistance, and that's really what you want. Is not to buck up against your own resistance, thinking that it has to be this way. Let the frames just play out, and then when it's time to, to bring it together. I like how Jesus says, that let the wheat and the chaff, let it all come up together, right? The separation will take place at the right time. So that's how we have to look at life and see it, in that way. Is that you got to non-linear-tize your life. Because if not, you're just not going to be able to optimize the life that you're here to live in total well-being if you are just stuck on these structures that really have crumbled away. And it's really time to just really have a divine demolition and demolish those structures so that you can come into the newer expansion that you're really here to live. So that's just something that I wanted to talk about. Is that you have to see it with everything. It's that your education process, okay, things are just not just this straight line or just, 1, 2, 3 step, do this and you get that. The equations are producing something different at this point. So, just be open to that. The alignment is not always convenient, but it will be ultimately the best thing for you.